The 1960s weren't all muscle cars and chrome masterpieces. Some vehicles from this era were so badly engineered, so poorly built, or so dangerously flawed that they destroyed entire automotive brands. We're talking about cars that lost manufacturers hundreds of millions of dollars, sparked federal safety investigations, and in one case, sank when driven into water. These are the 12 worst cars of the 1960s. Number 12. 1961 to 1968 Amphicar. Designed by Hans Trippel and manufactured in West Germany, this amphibious vehicle featured a 1,147cc Triumph Herald inline-4 engine producing 43 horsepower. It measured approximately 157 inches long and weighed over 2,400 pounds. The marketing claimed it could achieve 7 knots in water and 70 miles per hour on land, the fastest car on water and the fastest boat on the road. But here's the critical flaw. The Amphicar wasn't particularly watertight. Its flotation depended entirely on whether the bilge pump could keep up with water leakage. If the pump failed or couldn't keep pace, the Amphicar would sink. On land, the narrow tires and high ground clearance resulted in poor handling and a top-heavy feel. Performance was lackluster, with 0 to 60 acceleration taking over 21 seconds. Number 11. 1963 to 1976 Hillman Imp. The Hillman Imp had everything going for it on paper. An innovative all-aluminum 875cc overhead cam engine derived from a Coventry Climax racing unit, independent suspension all around, and a practical rear engine layout with a clever opening rear window. This British economy car measured approximately 144 inches long and produced 37 horsepower. The engine featured an unusual 45-degree cant to lower the center of gravity, and it was designed by Mike Parks, who would later become a Formula One driver. But the Imp was rushed into production at the brand-new Linwood plant in Scotland before development was complete, and the result was a disaster. Water pumps failed, gearboxes broke, water leaked into the cabin, and the cooling system couldn't keep the rear-mounted engine from overheating. The double-skinned bodywork was prone to rust everywhere. First-year sales in 1963 reached about 33,000 units, but by 1965, sales dropped as reliability problems destroyed the car's reputation. Total production over 13 years reached only 440,000 units, far short of projections. It's widely considered the car that killed the Roots Group. Number 10. 1965 to 1967 AMC Rambler Marlin. American Motors Corporation introduced the Rambler Marlin in 1965 as their entry into the personal luxury fastback market to compete with the Plymouth Barracuda and Ford Mustang. But the Marlin missed the mark by a wide margin. The problem started with the platform. AMC built it on the mid-sized Rambler Classic chassis designed for family sedans, not sporty coupes. The result was a car that looked awkward and disproportionate. The fastback roof design sat atop a body that was simply too large, at 195 inches long. Even AMC's own designer, Bob Nixon, later called it one of our worst production cars. The narrow trunk lid opening made loading cargo difficult, and the raised roofline over the rear seats ruined the fastback's proportions. Performance was mediocre at best, with handling that didn't match its sporty pretensions. Sales reflected the car's failings. AMC sold 10,327 Marlins in 1965, but numbers plummeted to just 2,500 in 1967, the car's final year. The Marlin proved to be an expensive lesson in the importance of proper platform selection and proportional design. Number 9. 1960 Ford Falcon. The Ford Falcon was actually a sales success, selling over 435,000 units in its first year. But success in the showroom doesn't always mean success on the road. This compact measured 181 inches long with a 109.5-inch wheelbase and weighed approximately 2,380 pounds. Under the hood sat a 144 cubic inch inline-6 producing just 90 horsepower. The real problem was Ford's obsession with fuel economy over drivability. They specified a 3.10 rear axle ratio that made the car nearly impossible to drive in real-world conditions. The gap between second and third gear in the 3-speed manual transmission was so wide that passing from 50 miles per hour became a frustrating exercise. Motor Life magazine recorded a 0 to 60 time of 17.3 seconds, but noted that real-world performance felt much slower due to gearing problems. The steering required 4.6 turns lock-to-lock, making it slow and ponderous. The interior materials were cheap and utilitarian, even by 1960s economy car standards. While it became the basis for the legendary Ford Mustang, the original Falcon itself was a compromise too far. Number 8. 1960 Plymouth Fury. The 1960 Plymouth Fury represented a stark departure from the previous generation, and not in a good way. Chrysler's designers created a car that prioritized radical styling over practical considerations. The Fury featured dramatic overhangs extending from the front, around the sides, and to the rear. While these were intended to look futuristic and stylish, they created significant problems with visibility and judging the car's extremities while parking. The severely sloped roofline drastically reduced rear seat headroom, making the back uncomfortable for adult passengers. The Fury measured over 213 inches long with a 122-inch wheelbase and weighed approximately 3,700 pounds. While the mechanical components were generally reliable, the impractical body design meant that form had completely overtaken function. This was the era when Chrysler's forward-look styling philosophy reached its most extreme. Build quality was typical for 1960s Chrysler products, meaning rust issues in rocker panels, trunk floors, and around suspension mounting points were common. The dramatic styling may have turned heads, but it turned off buyers who needed a practical family car. Number 7. 1964 to 1967 Vauxhall Victor FC. The Vauxhall Victor FC, marketed as the Victor 101 for its claimed 101 improvements over the previous model, promised to be a modern family car for the mid-1960s. This British family car measured approximately 172 inches long with a 100-inch wheelbase and a 1.6-liter inline-4 producing 66 horsepower. It introduced curved side window glass and incorporated innovative styling elements like side and indicator lamps mounted in the front bumper. On paper, it represented genuine progress, but the reality was catastrophic. The Victor FC suffered from rust problems so severe that it earned Vauxhall a reputation for corrosion that lasted for years. The inner and outer front wings, door seals, sills, and rear wheel arches dissolved into rust within just a few years of ownership. The wraparound windscreen design created water traps that contributed to pillar corrosion. Build quality compounded the rust issues with a notoriously noisy gearbox and vague 3-speed column change transmission. Number 6. 1961 Plymouth Fury. The 1961 Plymouth Fury continued Chrysler's styling missteps with what many consider an even worse design than 1960. The company dropped all vertical styling cues in favor of a completely flat look, with revised headlight eyebrows, creating a car that looked both dated and futuristic in all the wrong ways. The bustle-back trunk design was particularly controversial, and the overall proportions looked oddly dumpy and awkward. Despite sharing many components with the upcoming troubled 1962 models, the 1960 managed to maintain essentially unchanged sales figures. Under the hood, Plymouth offered engines ranging from the 225 cubic inch slant 6 to the powerful 413 cubic inch V8 with dual 4-barrel carburetors. But even good engines couldn't save a car with styling that alienated buyers. The 1961 Fury represented the final year before Chrysler's disastrous 1962 downsizing experiment. Rust was a significant problem, particularly in rocker panels and around the rear window. Today, these early 1960s Furies are hard to find, mostly due to rust issues, though they've developed a small cult following among enthusiasts who appreciate their unusual appearance. Number 5. 1960 Dodge Dart Seneca. The 1960 Dodge Dart created confusion in the marketplace from day one. Despite being marketed as Plymouth's cheaper alternative and riding on Plymouth's 118-inch wheelbase, the Dart was still classified as full-size, though it was approximately 7 inches shorter than Dodge's standard models. This identity crisis made it difficult for buyers to understand exactly what they were getting. The base Seneca trim came with minimal equipment and the 225 cubic inch slant 6 engine that provided adequate but uninspiring performance. Build quality was typical for 1960s Chrysler products, meaning rust issues in rocker panels, trunk floors, and around suspension mounting points were common. The dramatic styling with prominent tail fins looked dated almost immediately as automotive design shifted toward cleaner lines. Station wagon variants using the Polara wheelbase and fins looked particularly awkward and disproportionate. While the mechanical design was straightforward and maintenance was manageable, the Dart's unclear market positioning and questionable styling choices made it a problematic entry in Dodge's lineup. Number 4. 1960 to 1963 Chevrolet Corvair. The Chevrolet Corvair was revolutionary, but revolution came with serious consequences. This rear-engine car measured approximately 180 inches long, with an air-cooled 140 cubic inch flat-six engine producing 80 horsepower. The early Corvairs from 1960 to 1963 featured a swing-axle rear suspension that was prone to dangerous oversteer. General Motors knew about the handling issues but declined to spend the few dollars per car to install a front stabilizer bar that would have made the suspension more manageable. The car also required unusual tire pressures, 15 psi in front and 26 psi in the rear, which most owners ignored, resulting in dangerous oversteer. Ralph Nader's 1965 book Unsafe at Any Speed called the Corvair the one-car accident and destroyed the car's reputation almost overnight. GM faced over 100 lawsuits connected to crashes involving the Corvair. Sales collapsed from 220,000 units in 1965 to just 109,880 in 1966 after Nader's book was published. Additional problems included oil leaks from the air-cooled engine, a heating system that could pump noxious fumes into the cabin, and a single-piece steering column that could impale the driver in a front collision. While a 1972 government study eventually cleared the Corvair, the damage was done. The Corvair became the poster child for automotive safety failures. Number 3. 1959 Chevrolet Impala. The iconic 1959 Impala on a worst cars list might seem surprising, but it had significant issues when new that are often forgotten. The dramatic styling with huge tail fins and copious chrome was polarizing, and the bubble-top design with narrow C-pillars and plentiful glass created a significant greenhouse effect. These cars became unbearably hot in summer, earning them the nickname cookers. This problem was so severe that full-size Ford coupes actually outsold Chevys in 1960 and 1961, despite Chevrolet dominating overall sales. The 1959 Impala rode on a new X-frame chassis that provided little side impact protection, a serious safety concern. Build quality was inconsistent, with the massive bodies prone to squeaks, rattles, and alignment issues. Rust was a major issue, particularly in the trunk, rockers, and around the massive rear fenders. Number 2. 1958 Lincoln Continental Mark III. The 1958 Lincoln Continental Mark III represents one of the most expensive failures in automotive history. Ford lost approximately $60 million on the 1958 through 1960 Lincoln program as the company tried desperately to catch up with General Motors' luxury dominance. The Mark III was the largest unibody car ever made at the time, measuring 229 inches long and weighing over 5,000 pounds. This massive vehicle came with a price tag exceeding $6,000, making it an extremely expensive badge-engineered Lincoln with additional trim and equipment. Quality control was a disaster from day one. Ford introduced too many changes at once, resulting in quality lapses that directly contradict advertising claims of unattainable luxury standards. The massive unibody construction proved problematic, and communication breakdowns between engineering and design departments made matters worse. The 430 cubic inch V8 was powerful but thirsty, and the overall size made the car unwieldy in urban environments. Build quality issues were common, and the controversial styling looked ungainly to many buyers. Ford's market share in the luxury segment dropped from 18.4% in 1957 to just 13.4% by 1960. The Mark III became such an embarrassment that when Lincoln introduced a new Continental for 1969, they simply erased the 1958 through 1960 marks from corporate memory. Number 1. 1960 Edsel. Taking the number 1 spot for worst car of the 1960s is the 1960 Edsel. This wasn't just bad, it was historically catastrophic. Ford discontinued the entire brand after producing only 2,846 units, making it the only automobile in history never actually produced during its designated model year. By 1960, the Edsel had been stripped of its controversial horse collar grille and looked strikingly similar to Ford's own models, eliminating any reason to buy one. Ford lost over $250 million on the Edsel program, equivalent to over $2.6 billion today. Quality control was a nightmare from day one. Edsels arrived at dealerships with such shoddy build quality that dealers had to spend time and money making them presentable or even saleable. The cars were built on existing Ford and Mercury lines with no Edsel-specific training for workers. The 1960 models came equipped with a subpar 2-speed mile-o-matic transmission that received numerous customer complaints. Production ended November 19, 1959, just 5 weeks after the cars went on sale. The Edsel became synonymous with corporate failure and remains a cautionary tale in business schools today. It represents the ultimate automotive disaster of the 1960s.